Hello, good day to everyone. I am Dr. Rishikesh Venkatraman from Indian Institute of Information Technology, IIIT Sri City. Welcome to my tutorial talk on neighborhood discovery for autonomous driving in connected and non-connected vehicles. So we'll begin with a brief outline of the tutorial talk. There are two parts for the talk. The first part is by myself, where we'll be talking on what is an Indian transportation scenario, what is an ADAS, Adaptive Driver Assistance System, the vehicle recommendation engine. Before going into the neighborhood discovery, we'll talk of what we at Smart Transportation Research Group are doing in this area. So that will give you a clear picture of why we are actually presenting a tutorial talk on this topic. The two connectivity mechanisms on first is on the vehicular communications, the second is on the radar and the multi-sensor fusion. Then part two, the second part of the tutorial talk would be done by my PhD student. He's in his fourth year. He would be talking of LiDAR and camera, the two sensors for perception. He will look into the different advanced technologies for neighborhood discovery, starting with computer vision, artificial neural networks, convolutional neural networks, and the 2D object detection models. Finally, the real-time applications for improving the driver safety. I'll first quickly go through the Indian transportation scenario. A classic an example of a traffic jam or a less disciplined road traffic scenario in India. This is not necessarily restricted to India. You can find similar things in many countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, and also South America, especially. But I wanted to present this because we have done a lot of case studies in this matter 5 years back. So I'll just present you some common scenarios that you see in the typical urban roads, where you will see on the top left, this is one classic example of a huge traffic jam that happened. On the top right, we have the BRTS or the bus rapid transit system, where the central two lanes are dedicated for bus and the other public transport systems, whereas the other left and the right lanes have huge congested traffic reserved for three-wheelers and small lorries and other personal vehicles. And then we have the seemingly disciplined lanes, where we have 7 lanes of vehicles on a 5-lane road. Again, it has mainly the buses and the cars, so which brings in the some level of uh, lane discipline. And then finally, a national highway scenario where you have very well lane marked structured roads in one of the metropolitan cities. So this is as good as a very lane disciplined city if any European or a North American country. Now, before we go on to the ADAS, just want to present some statistics. That is the a very large connecting road network. The number of road accidents has been close to 500,000 or 500,000 for the last 3-4 years each year. The lives lost has been around 150,000 every year. So this is the year-wise road traffic accident statistics, where you can see that the road number of persons injured has been nearly 500,000 for the last 12 years, and the number of people who have been killed or who lost their lives has been increasing, and last 3 years it has been steady at around 1.5 lakhs. We have a statistic of 2018 which is very recently released, and then which also has similar numbers. So what are the real-time road traffic challenges? The paved or the unpaved roads, the unstructured or the chaotic road traffic, the vehicle types including two-wheelers, three-wheelers, um, small four-wheelers, the big four-wheelers, the buses, the lorries, oversized vehicles, the nature of the roads, which includes the earthen road, gravel road, tar road, the broken dividers or the potholes, the road structures, the road traffic participants, which includes pedestrians to even cattle and so on. Um, we looked at a statistic of a particular state, Andhra Pradesh, the state where our institute is located. We looked at time-wise statistic. where we had conducted a slot, where we considered a slot of 3 hours, and then we looked at what is the number of accidents in 1 year, which was 2017, in any day in the 3 hour slots. We see that the large number of accidents, of course, happen between 3 to 6 in the afternoon to evening, and 6 to 9, where there is a lot of traffic and it is getting dark. The very less number of accidents happening between 0 to 3 hours and 3 to 6 hours. That is also obviously because the traffic density on the road is very less. So overall, the one state contributes to around 25,000 accidents out of the 500,000 accidents that happens in the country in 2017. Now we go on to what is ADAS. So this actually gives you a very good picture of why we need ADAS, why we need a driver assistive system, because a driver assistance systems can actually help in many aspects such as lane assistance, driver distraction analysis, night vision assistance, obstacle detection, also in the night time obstacle, which is a bigger problem, then the broken divider detection and the pothole detection, which is quite a common problem, that is the existence of potholes in the roads, the adaptive cruise control, and of course detecting traffic signs and other boards and so on. Why these are essential today? Because we need to improve the road safety, we need to improve the traffic management system, reinforce that the vehicle understand its environment, and also because the driving conditions in India or similar places are very highly unstructured and diverse, with interesting behaviors from the traffic participants. Of course, we will not focus on the behavior of the participants in this, or the behavior of the drivers in this session. Um, Before I go on to the neighborhood discovery, the want to first showcase what is the different levels of autonomy as per SAE, Society for Automotive Engineers. They have defined 6 levels of autonomy, starting with level 0, wherein we have no automation or zero autonomy, where the driver performs all the driving tasks, to level 1, a driver assistance system. Vehicle is controlled by the driver, but still some driver assist features may be included in the vehicle design. This includes your airbag, this includes your park assist systems. Partial automation, where vehicle is combined the automated functions, the like acceleration, steering, adaptive cruise control, but the driver still must remain engaged with the driving task. So this partial automation itself needs a very accurate and an efficient neighborhood discovery. And of course, beyond level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, all of these needs a very high accuracy of neighborhood discovery, where a full automation would mean that the vehicle is performing all the driving functions under all conditions. Now, what do we get by getting this neighborhood information? The most important task is to provide a recommendation engine to the drivers. So can the vehicle provide a real time, I repeat that term, real time, or as they call it, hard real time based recommendation to the drivers for a driving? Before we go on to that, I want to just briefly tell what we at Smart Transportation Research Group are doing. We look at different aspects. Some of these aspects form the basis for this talk. There's the lane detection and the curvature estimation. We looked at a lot of traffic density analysis and prediction. We looked at the multimodal sensor fusion DAS recommendation system, which is the core or the heart of this presentation. The obstacle detection and the distance estimation. Of course, the multi-hop based communication for V2V. That's one very important work that we are doing. The pothole and the broken road detection. We have been working on these aspects for the last 5.5 years. We have had 3 PhD students so far, 6 research honors students, 3 undergraduate bachelor's projects that currently ongoing, completed 2 projects, one of them being with the German university in Baden-Württemberg state, 2 ongoing projects, again one of them being with Hella Automotive, 3 consultancy projects, 2 of them being with startups and one of them with a fairly big company that we are currently working on. Some of the publications, we have got some publications in IEEE 5G World Forum itself very recently. 2 more publications in ASIT in Munich in Germany, and then we have got one early in the year in 2020 in ACM CompsNets. Publication through my other research students and so on in 2019. Then 2018-17, when we actually started this work in 2015, end of 2015. Two patents with my research honors students working with the Hella Automotive. So this is still under process, not yet granted, where we have filed it with the company Hella Automotive. Uh, Giving a brief background, I just wanted to give this background to tell where do we stand and where we are in terms of giving this tutorial. So now we go on to the importance of the neighborhood discovery. What does a neighborhood discovery can do us? It will actually measure what are the out vehicle parameters, what are the immediate neighborhood wherein my vehicle is being driven. So we of course we look at the in vehicle parameter, but also the importantly out vehicle parameters, the Indian road conditions. Can we look at the driver's drivability and also integrate with the DAS features that exist and give a recommendation engine to the drivers? We felt the need because we worked with the Central Road Research Institute (CRRI) in 2016. We realized we jotted down different aspects, different problems that we faced, like almost no discipline in the road traffic, very less space between the vehicles, the mixed mode traffic operations, mix of two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, the oversized trucks and lorries that hampers the visibility of the other vehicles, the vehicles coming in the opposite direction, the same lane, mostly found in the rural areas or the national and the state highways going through the rural areas, wherein you also have pedestrians walking or crossing in different parts of the road. Now, what can the neighborhood information give me? The neighborhood information can give me what are the other different types of vehicles in my immediate neighborhood, what is the speed with which these vehicles are coming, their acceleration, the proximity of those vehicles as compared to the ego vehicle, the size of the vehicle, height, weight of the vehicle, the overall status of the vehicle, and any other vehicle parameter, whether it's oversized and so on. In addition to that, can we also get some external parameters like the weather parameters, conditions of the roads, traffic in the roads, like the environment conditions, entry or the exit points, obstacles in the road or the roads that are prone to accidents. And again, these information can come in different input formats. It could be text, images, videos, or any other format. Now, I wanted to tell you one thing here. That is typically, even when we are talking of collecting these information about the neighborhood or the other vehicles would typically arrive 2 to 10 seconds before an event. The human response for controlling the vehicle typically takes minimum 1 second to 10 seconds. The real-time data analytics needs at least zero point 0.5 seconds or 1 second. So that shows actually the hard real-time constraints that we are living in. Some of the select output parameters can be like change to right lane or move left in the same lane. This is especially so in a congested roads, or move right in the same lane, or you are too close to some other vehicle, or increase or reduce your acceleration, or increase reduce the speed by so and so, or apply brake. So some of the recommendation engine to the drivers, which would typically be derived from the real-time analysis after we get the information from the all other vehicles, from my ego vehicle, that is V1, and also the information from the other vehicles V2, V3, and so on. So having given this example, now let's go into the actual neighborhood discovery. But before that, I just want to showcase one result of and some initial analysis that we did. We looked at some heuristic algorithms to begin with to solve that. We found it's too much of time consuming. We looked at machine learning techniques, starting with Bayesian network, logistic regression, SVM, random forest. The best time typically varies from 1 to 3 seconds to carry out the computations. The average time was, of course, 7 to 10 times more than the best time. This is despite the fact that we did not consider some of the real-time aspects like the driver's attentiveness and concentration. This is of course not the focus of this talk as well. But I wanted to show that that means that the time taken is considerably huge. So that means getting the information of the neighborhood on time is something that is very crucial. Having said this, we'll now go into one of the aspects of the neighborhood information, that is V2X, wherein we look at first a V2V. We see vehicle, a yellow vehicle in the center. Then we have an ellipse, dotted ellipse, which indicates the communication range of that particular yellow vehicle. That means there's a maximum transmission distance to which it can communicate. So now the yellow vehicle can communicate with all other vehicles within this transmission range, which is shown by the different colors. It could be a green car, as indicated here, in the same lane, or a red color car in the next lane. The different information of the vehicles it can gather, such as nature of the vehicles, load in case of the 4+ wheelers, the road terrain and the environment conditions like highway scenario, sparse to the medium traffic, congested traffic in cities, and etc. The challenge here is to have a modification in the MAC protocol. Why? In order to get these information through using some multicast routing mechanism or something, such that the latency is reduced in case of the data transmission. So this is an important aspect that is still an open challenge. The multi-hop vehicular communication scenario, wherein the source vehicle and the destination vehicle where you want to transfer the information, they are not within the transmission range. As shown in the previous slide, they are outside the communication range of the vehicle, in which case the vehicles would have to then communicate with the destination through intermediate vehicular nodes. So, which in turn could mean large packet loss and more importantly could result in larger delays. So some of the aspects, I just want to present here one of the example solution. A lot of people have worked in this area is to look at a cluster-based mechanism. People have looked at one-level cluster, two-level cluster, where vehicles are grouped into clusters, and then looked at a multi-cluster model with a moving forward technique, wherein the resource efficiency is increased using an ACRR or alternate cluster resource use. So we'll start with one of the cluster-based communications. I'll give an example of the MCMF as well, wherein we have an RSU, that is the roadside unit, typically one roadside unit for every 8 kilometers or something. So basically that means using a DSRC or wave standards, our cluster size is around half a kilometer or so. So what we have is that the roads are divided, or the vehicles in the road are divided into different clusters. So each cluster has n number of vehicles, and then each cluster has a coordinator. So first it has n number of clusters. Here it is shown C1, C2, C3 up to Cn, and then you have each cluster as a coordinator, typically and a sub coordinator. So the one that is there in closest to the roadside unit is called in this example a cluster coordinator, and those which this cluster coordinator can directly communicate with the roadside unit. Whereas the other clusters coordinator, which are not in turn not direct communication range with the roadside unit, we call it as a cluster sub coordinator. The main reason is because the cluster sub coordinators cannot communicate with the roadside unit or with the infrastructure node. So they will communicate in the multi-hop fashion with the next CS or next cluster sub coordinator and so on, till either one of the CS becomes the CC, or till the message by forwarding means reaches the coordinator sub coordinator, which is the coordinator. That is, till it reaches the cluster head node, which is in direct communication range of the roadside unit, right? So typically the clusters are rectangular with the road length RC much greater than the width QC, right? The In order to consider an efficient resource use mechanism ACRR, people consider even number of clusters, though that is not necessary in itself to have a cluster based mechanism. So I'll take one more detailed example of this mechanism, wherein you see that you have this CS, that is the cluster sub coordinators. The cluster sub coordinator sends the data package to the next CS node until that reaches the CC node, or if it is in range of the RSU roadside unit, it communicates directly. So basically that means the cluster in itself moves forward. That is, the vehicles which are all within the cluster, since they are all moving, they all form considered to be part of the cluster. Of course, there is lot of dynamism involved. So the cluster velocity, which is the average velocity of all the vehicles in the cluster, may not be the same as the individual velocity. Vehicles velocity. That means there would be vehicles moving out of the cluster, vehicles coming into the cluster, all these aspects that still needs to be considered, which are being investigated here. So, but having said that, increasing the number of hops beyond 4 to 5 results in a large delay and results in a packet loss. So that's why the V2X mechanism is considered or is used for design as long as the number of multiple hops is restricted to 4 or 5. Right. One of the mechanisms that is considered for a synchronized cluster communication mechanism is that the time division multiple access based, wherein a time slot partitioning considered is considered, wherein any vehicle is not that it can transmit in any time slot. It can transmit to the information only in the designated time slots. In case of alternate clusters, the alternate time slots are given. Or clusters communicate in one time slot. In the next time slot, the even number of clusters communicate. So assuming, for example, a uniform distribution of the vehicles, the average distance between the vehicle and a CS node would be A by 2, right? That is, if you are considering the CS to be looked, that is the cluster sub-coordinator to be located at the center of the cluster. In the previous slide, we showed an example where the CS, the cluster sub-coordinator, is located at the front of the cluster. So these are the different architectures that are already available in the literature world. But in this example, in this slide, I'm showing one of the cluster sub-coordinator mechanism where it is placed in the center of the cluster. There, it is used for your ACRR, that is the alternate cluster resource use, wherein the average distance of the interfering transmitting vehicle from the desired receiver is typically 2.5 times the A. That is, basically, you can repeat after 2.5 clusters, where A is the distance of the cluster. So there are different mechanisms that are being used in order to support vehicular communications. I'll not go into too much of the maths here for want of time and information. Um, the how the throughput is computed for such a cluster-based mechanisms. But I just want to tell you that want to present a simple model that many of the papers have used. They have considered 6 lanes or 3 lanes. They have considered around 50 kilometers with 1,000 vehicles, which we have also done. But I just wanted to present the some of the simulation parameters. So I request you to focus on the parameters rather than on the values, wherein you consider the average number of vehicles per cluster. It could be 60 or it could be 40. Average traffic per vehicle that you want to present, traffic in terms of the data traffic here. The velocity is the average velocity, 80 to 120 kilometers. Different mobility models that could exist, different propagation modeling, different packet arrival rate, and so on. Some results just to showcase where we are is that the typically the single hop or the direct vehicle to vehicle communication, and then you have the cluster based mechanism. You show that the throughput typically that can be achieved with the MCMF or the cluster based mechanism is much higher than the single hop mechanism, right? And importantly, the single loop mechanism requires an RSU every 10 kilometers or so, because that means single loop basically means that you are actually communicating directly with the roadside unit. So it would not support communication mechanism where the roadside units are located, say, every 40 or 50 kilometers, because the cluster or the vehicle itself is not in range of the roadside unit. Whereas a cluster-based mechanism with a moving cluster would not only support communication with the RSUs are 50 kilometers apart, but also provide reasonable throughput, which is not possible in the single op design. So again, for want of time, I am skipping some other simulation results, but I want to present one more aspect, that is the radar or the multi-sensor fusion that we have done. What's a radar to begin with? Radar is a transmitter producing electromagnetic waves in the radio or the microwave domain, a transmitting receiving antenna. You have information about the object's location and the speed. It can operate over long distances, adaptive to the varied conditions, and it is inexpensive compared to LiDAR. That is, it can hit an object, come back, so it will tell you where is there an obstacle there. What are different types of radar? Short range radar, typically it's 0.2 to 30-meter range. Medium range radar, 30 to 80 meters range. Long range radar, 80 meters to 200 meters range. The limitations could be that the radars might not react correctly to certain conditions, especially if there is a car which is cutting in front of the vehicle. Detecting thin profile vehicles such as motorcycles being staggered in the lane, setting the distance based on the wrong vehicle, say due to the curvature of the road. Um, we'll just now see the radar applicability in the ADAS environment. The short range radar, it could be very useful. Please note that the range is 0.2 to 30-meter range. So collision proximity, it can be used for identifying collisions or very close to collision scenario, for warning and safety measures, for parking assistance systems. Whereas a medium range radar, it can be used to detect the corners of the vehicle, the blind spot detection, avoid other vehicle lane crossover, or assist in the side or the corner collisions. The long range radar in turn can be used to detect the forward looking sensors, especially for an adaptive cruise control, which is typically available today, early detection, and a predictive emergency braking. So basically, that means it's giving you a long range information. So typically, if you're going for an autonomous vehicle, you would need a combination of all three kinds of radars in your vehicle. The feature of the radar suggested improvements, the increased resolution that is especially that is needed for us, the long range 3D scanning, object detection and classification and the tracking. So I just put some pictures of different types of radar sensors from Bosch, Denso and Ecodyne. I've given some functioning of that of each of these different sensors. Typically, they operate either in the 24 gigahertz band or the 77 gigahertz band. So that means typically used to cover only a very small range of distances, maximum around 300 meters. So that's the range that is from the long range radar. Before we conclude this first part, I just want to tell you how radar can be used for the vehicular lane change. We also did some analysis using the radar and the fusion of the vehicular systems, wherein the vehicular lane change, they gave an analysis in a system-assisted driving environment. We considered a MATLAB tool where we had a design of a driving scenario, define the parameters for the vehicles, computed the waypoint measurements, the radar sensor data fusion, motion-based tracking, and then simulate the driving scenario. So you will see that what we have done, we have considered what is the angle or FOV, and the term I forgot to mention in the previous slide is the wider FOV, field of view. So this slide shows you the what is the FOV, what is the field of view of a radar. So a wider field of view radar is typically put in the front of the vehicle to get the information of the different neighborhood information or the different obstacles and objects present outside my vehicle. Right. So I'll end this first part of the talk here. Radar, of course, has its own disadvantage. That is, it can be used when when a radar signal can be detected or sensed by an obstacle and come back. But one of the bigger problems of the radar is that it cannot give you the, or it cannot identify the type or the size or the characteristic of the object. Of course, today there are a lot of researchers and startups and companies working on MIMO radar, that is multiple antenna radars, wherein the idea is to get the shape or the dimension of the object or to understand the object that the radar signal is hitting, so that we can recreate the object, so that is the object it's not object detection, it is object detection using recreation mechanisms or object recreation mechanism using MIMO radar. There's a lot of work going on in this area. So I'll stop at this point. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at hvraman. Very easy to remember, hvraman at IIITS.in. Now we finished the first part. My PhD student will start the second part. Thank you.